Hi everyone, Mrs. V here, and today we are going to be learning about the condensation polymers. So let's get started. Condensation polymers are really interesting because condensation polymers form many of the materials that we use in our everyday lives. The condensation reaction we have met before. Condensation reactions are where we eliminate water in the reaction. So condensation polymers are just polymers in which the monomers are linked through a condensation reaction. To be able to form a polymer, then you need to have two functional groups on each of the monomers. That way the reaction can keep going to form a chain. Now we've learned about two condensation reactions. We've learned about esterification, which of course would make polyesters, and amide formation, which would produce polyamides. Now the polyesters, ester formation is required. Therefore, we're going to need carboxylic acids and alcohols. We've learned before about how to form esters. The monomers, therefore, have to have two of these functional groups, and therefore our monomers are diacids and diols. So two molecules with two carboxylic acid groups. We see here this molecule has two carboxylic acid groups, and also diols with two alcohol groups. So we have two alcohol groups on this monomer. The polyesters form many common materials, anything from yacht sails to clothing items, even plastic drink bottles. So let's have a look at how this occurs. We've met simple condensation reaction before, and we know that water is eliminated. And we know in an esterification, we take the hydroxyl group from the carboxylic acid and the hydrogen off of the alcohol. And this is going to form our ester link here. And of course, we're going to eliminate water in this process. And that's why it's a condensation reaction. Now, the product of this reaction still has two functional groups. So we still have our carboxylic acid group and we still have an alcohol group. Now this is able to react again. When you've actually joined two monomers, the product is called a dimer. Just a polymer with two monomers having been joined. Now that dimer can go on and react with another molecule. So we see here, if we put another diacid, that we can eliminate water. So here we're going to eliminate water again, and that is going to produce our ester link here. And water, remember, is an equilibrium reaction and requires a strong acid catalyst. Once you've got three monomer groups joined, what you have is called a trimer. The trimer can go on and react further and so on and so forth. And we eliminate our water and form our new ester link, eliminating water. And then we have four monomer groups joined. So this is called a tetramer. And then that can go on and react further. So we eliminate water again. And we're going to get the pentamer, and so on and so forth. That just keeps going. The process really stops when you run out of monomers. So you can actually design the length of your polymer chain by having specific amounts of each monomer. Let's have a look at an example. Here we have polyethylene terephthalate. I wonder why that's called PET. That is a difficult word to say. So our monomers are terephthalic acid and ethane 1,2-diol. I don't like the ethane 1,2-diol. Should be ethane. Let's cross that out. Okay, let's have a look at how this occurs. I'm going to color code the molecules so we can see what's going on. So I have my terephthalic acid, which is my carboxylic acid. The benzene ring can be drawn just with a circle in the middle instead of the three bonds. And then I have my diol, my ethylene glycol, or my ethane 1,2-diol. what's going to happen is I'm going to eliminate water. And those two are going to link. Strong acid catalyst. And so my product will be the dimer. Here's my ester link that I made. And here is the part that came from the alcohol. And of course, we're going to get water as well. But my dimer can then go on and react again. I'm going to have to go down the page here. Let's get rid of that water so that I can draw the next monomer. So if I have another terephthalic acid, and I eliminate water, then what I'm going to get is the trimer. Here's my first ester link that I made. Now here's the second ester link that I made. It looks like a benzene. And of course, I'm going to get water. Now that's just going to keep going on and on and on and on. And in fact, that reaction will be happening simultaneously. You don't actually build this up stepwise. This is just the way that I'm showing it to explain what's happening. The reaction's actually happening on both sides of the molecule all the time to build up that long polymer chain. So this is what we end up with, our very long polyethylene terephthalate chain. And you can see all through here, our ester groups are linking our monomers. So all through, we have those ester groups. And it's important to be able to recognize those ester groups. This is very, very tedious. If we need to write this out every time, this huge structure, it's extremely tedious. So the way we actually describe a polymer structure is with a general formula. And that general formula involves what we call the repeating unit of the polymer. Now, the repeating unit can be found by simply finding an ester group. So let's find, doesn't matter which ester group you find on the polymer, but you break it. So you go, okay, I'm going to break that link. So I'm just going to break the link through the middle there. Then I find that where that part of the polymer repeats again, which is here. And the part in between those two is called the repeating unit. It doesn't matter which of the monomers starts the repeating unit. If you wanted to start the repeating unit here and take that repeating unit to here, you would still get exactly the same repeating unit. It would just be flipped over. So it doesn't matter which way you find the repeating unit. And the way we express the structure of the polymer is simply the repeating unit. We put it in brackets and write an N to show that it's just that over and over and over again. Now, the polyamides are formed in a similar process. The only difference is polymerization is going to occur through amide formation for a polyamide. The monomers still will need two functional groups. So we have diacids and diamines. We have two carboxylic acid groups and 2 amino groups. Polyamides tend to be a bit tougher than polyesters, so they're used for things like ropes, clothing. They make plastic nuts and bolts out of them, tarpaulins, bulletproof vests, sewing threads, reusable shopping bags, even dental floss. So a very wide range of uses. Now, the process is exactly the same as esterification, only this time we're looking at amide formation, but we still eliminate water. I think we could replace that with an equilibrium arrow and a strong acid catalyst, and you will form an amide group linking the 2 monomers. So, of course, this reaction is happening on both sides of the molecule all the time. So if you just eliminate all of the waters, then what actually occurs is we eliminate those waters, and we're going to have these groups join up in amide links. Now let's have a look at identifying the repeating unit of this polymer. Same idea as before. Find yourself an amide group this time and break it. Then find the point where that polymer repeats, and the part in the middle is your repeating unit. Then you simply write your repeating unit out . I'll colour in the boxes so we don't get confused. So this was the blue box, and this one's the red box. And then we just put that in our square brackets. We make the bonds on the end go through the square bracket, and we just write an N. Let's have a look at an example now. This is nylon 6,6. Nylon 6,6 is called nylon 6,6 because both of its monomers have 6 carbon atoms. So you can see here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 carbon atoms in adipic acid, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 carbon atoms in hexamethylene diamine. Well, this is also known as hexane 1,6-diamine if we use its correct IUPAC name. Adipic acid is known as hexane dioic acid, oic acid. And these two can react to form an amide. Now again, we're going to colour code the molecules. Just to save space, I'm going to not draw them out. I'm going to actually write out their formulae. Notice how I can actually just put the CH2 in brackets and write that it's occurred 4 times. And here I'm going to write the CH2 has occurred 6 times. Let's eliminate water from this molecule. And what we're going to produce is the dimer. And of course, we're going to form water as well because it is a condensation reaction. Now we can go on and have that product reacting with another monomer. Eliminate the water. And we are going to form the trimer. And of course, water. Now that process is going to go on and on and on and on until you build up the polymer chain. So here's the polymer chain of nylon 6,6. Let's identify its repeating unit and its general formula. So we're going to find an amide link and we're going to break it. And then we're going to find where that polymer structure repeats. What's in between is the repeating unit. All we need to do now is put that repeating unit in brackets with an N, and we have our general formula. We put the square brackets around it, make the bonds go through the brackets, and a little N. And there's the general formula for nylon 6,6. Proteins are also polyamides. They're natural polyamides. The monomers, however, are amino acids. They have a carboxylic acid group and an amine group in the same molecule. They're usually made from many different amino acids, and therefore we don't generally have simple repeating units for proteins. Polyamides are really strong because one polyamide chain is able to hydrogen bond with its neighbouring chains. And we see the hydrogen bonds here shown with the orange dots. This is because the hydrogen of the amino group is quite strongly delta plus, and there is a delta minus on the oxygen in the carbonyl group of the neighbouring chain. And this hydrogen bonding is a very strong intermolecular force, and because there are so many of them between the very long chains, the chains hold together very firmly. Now, an example of this is spider silk. Spider silk is a natural polyamide that has extensive hydrogen bonding between the polymer chains, and that is why it has such a high tensile strength. It's one of the strongest materials known for if you would take a strength to weight ratio. It's a polyamide that's rich in the amino acids glycine and alanine, and the exact chemical structure depends on the species of spider, but also the different types of silk that the spider is producing. Kevlar is a synthetic polyamide that's extremely strong. Again, we see many hydrogen bonds occurring between the polymer chains. This is so strong that it's used to make bulletproof vests. One of the things that you're going to be asked to do for sure in a test or exam on condensation polymers is to identify the monomers that a polymer is produced from. Now, the method for doing this is pretty similar for polyesters and polyamides. The only difference is what the link group is. So you simply have to find a link group. Now, if you're looking at polyesters, that's an ester link. If you're looking at polyamides, that's an amide link. Then you break the amide link. You find your repeating unit, as we've done before. So find your repeating unit. Now, your repeating unit is going to also contain a link group because the repeating unit has been formed from two monomers. So you have to actually break the link group, the ester link, or you need to break the amide link if it's a polyamide again, and that will separate off your two individual monomers. Now all you've got to do is add your hydroxyl group back to the carbonyl carbon, and your hydrogen goes back on either the oxygen ends or the nitrogen ends. Let's have a look at how this works. So we're going to start with Kevlar as an example. So we're going to look at the method step by step. So the first part is we're going to identify one of the joining groups. In this case, it will be an amide because we're looking at a polyamide. So step one is going to be find a link group. So in Kevlar, I've found an amide group here, and I'm going to break it. So I'm going to slash that down the middle. Step 2 is going to be identifying where the polymer structure repeats. So if I find that position again on my Kevlar, we're going to find that it repeats there. A little bit tricky, Kevlar. You've got to be very careful because both of the monomers have a benzene ring. And what's in between is the repeating unit. We're going to write out the structure of the repeating unit. So here's our repeating unit. Step 3 is to break the link in the repeating unit. All right, we find that we have an amide group. We're going to slash that down the middle, separate it off into its 2 parts. The final step is to put in our hydroxyl group and our hydrogens. So we put the hydroxyl group back on the carboxylic acids, and we put the hydrogens back onto the nitrogens. And these are now the 2 monomers that we use to form Kevlar. I want you to pause the video and I want you to have a go at Dacron. This one's a polyester, so you're going to need to be identifying ester groups. Have a go. All right, step 1 was to identify an ester group and break it. I'm going to choose this one and break it. It doesn't matter if you chose a different one. I'm going to then find where this polymer repeats, which is this point here. Now I need to write out my repeating unit in between. Now that I have the repeating unit, I need to identify the ester group in my repeating unit. Here it is, and I need to break it, and I need to write out my individual parts. Now I need to just replace my hydrogen onto the oxygens and my hydroxyl group onto the carboxylic acid. Now I found the 2 monomers. Here's a challenge example for you. This one is a protein. So this one is made of amino acids. Now, in this case, we would not look for a repeating unit. We're just going to follow the structure along and identify where the amide links are. So if we follow the structure from the end, we find an amide link here. We find another amide link here. We find another amide link here. And so on and so forth. Here's another amide link and another amide link, and so on and so forth through the whole structure. So all we need to do is break those amide links to get the individual parts of the polymer. So if I break this first one, I break this one here and draw out that first part. All I need to do is put my hydroxyl group back on, and I have the first amino acid. If I break the next group, then I just draw the structure of what's in between there. Then all I have to do is replace my hydrogen onto the amino group and my hydroxyl group back onto the carboxylic acid. And you can go through that entire structure, and that way you can find out the structure of all of the amino acids that we used to make this particular protein. That's all for today. If you enjoyed learning more about the condensation polymers that are part of your everyday life, please consider giving the video a like. And as always, please subscribe to my channel, watch a few more videos, keep learning more chemistry. I am going to see you guys in the next video.